colleagues' actions and proposals. I'm encouraged by Commissioner Saltzman saying that he thinks that we might have a chance of having a new dedicated revenue source for affordable housing. I'm encouraged by the mayor saying that by declaring an emergency, we can give ourselves some tools to make it easier to house people. But one thing I don't want to do today is to let the federal government off the hook. Homelessness is not just a Portland problem, it's a national problem, particularly acute in the cities of the West Coast, but you see the same problem in New York and elsewhere. Homelessness and housing affordability are among several crises that the federal government is not facing up to. We have an infrastructure crisis. It's not just the streets of Portland, the streets of many cities across the country that are falling apart, and the federal government does nothing. We have a climate disruption crisis, which is putting stress on our food supply and creating disruptive climate events which have an impact on businesses and homes and governments, and the federal government does nothing. And we have an inequality crisis, which is, to a significant extent, responsible for our housing affordability problems. Portland is an attractive city for everybody to move to, including rich people. So rich people move here, and they drive up the prices for everybody else. But if there were not such a huge gap between the rich and other people, then the crisis would not be as acute. And the federal government does not act to address the inequality crisis, which it could, for example, by reforming our labor laws. So I applaud my colleagues' actions here today, but I think it's important to remember that this is not just our problem, it's the country's problem, and our country's leaders are not doing what they need to do to address this problem.
I appreciate the opening statements, some of which sounded like closing statements. We are here to hear from you, the public, as to whether you think the proposals on the council agenda this afternoon are the right things to do, and I'm very much wanting to hear from you. Mayor, could you outline the process for amendments to any of the three of these, please?
So I think the order we're going to take them up in will be first the declaration, and therefore 1029, and then 1030 and 28 in that order, or the other way around?
No,
1030 and 1028. So I think what we'll want to do is, right after the staff presentation, take up any proposals for amendments that anyone has now.
On any of the three.
On any of the three, so that when people testify, you'll know that council's already put an amendment on the table that may make it a better proposal or a worse proposal, but you'll at least get to react to what someone intends to do in terms of the amendment. So with that, I think I'd like to bring up Josh Albert and our city attorney to walk us through the declaration, and Mark Jolan from Home for Everyone, who leads our consortium effort with Multnomah County and the Housing Authority and City of Gresham and nonprofits all working together the way governments and the community should. Welcome, Don.
Great, thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, Josh Albert, Mayor's Office. Thank you for the opportunity to bring to Council this declaration of a state of emergency. It's been a few weeks full of chaos and uncertainty and long days and nights for me, for our city attorneys, for our staffers, our partners at the county, and Home for Everyone throughout the city. And yet the chaos, uncertainty, and long days and nights are the status quo for Portlanders living on the street. The declaration we bring to you today to consider comes with a promise to all Portlanders that we can respond to an emergency in the Portland way, a way that involves each of us looking out for our fellow Portlanders, putting aside differences and digging deeper to make Portland truly a safe, dry, warm home for all our inhabitants. There is no model to follow, no playbook we can borrow. What you have before you today is the work of many people expert in housing and the issues of homelessness, aided by the compassion of others who simply know that we should be able to do more faster. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this forward for your deliberation. We'll turn it over to Mark Jolan, Executive Director of Home for Everyone, to walk through how these new tools can expedite our work, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. My name is Mark Jolan. I'm the Initiative Director for Home for Everyone. You chartered a Home for Everyone a little more than a year ago to provide a shared set of priorities and strategies that could unite the ending homelessness efforts of the City of Portland, the City of Gresham, Home Forward, Multnomah County, as well as the important work that's being done by our federal and state partners and by the faith, philanthropic, and business communities. Our goal, your goal, simply put, is to prevent or end the homelessness of thousands of people who find themselves sleeping on our streets and our shelters every night. Achieving this goal is not simple, but we knew that making progress would depend upon having a comprehensive plan with clearly articulated strategies and investment priorities for each of the critical dimensions of the problem of homelessness: access to housing, economic opportunity, health care, and the need for basic safety while experiencing homelessness, what we call safety off the streets. With direction from the executive committee, the 30-some members of the Home for Everyone Coordinating Board worked with dozens of other community partners to develop action plans which, if fully implemented, could lead to a 50% reduction in the unmet need for permanent housing in our community. What we didn't know even in January of this year, when we were finalizing these plans, is the depth of the crisis in our housing market and that it would disrupt so many lives so quickly, with many more people becoming homeless than we've previously experienced. With rents increasing 40% over the same 4-year period as the earnings for low-wage workers declined by more than 5%, we saw a 42% one-year increase in the number of people accessing our emergency shelters. We also didn't foresee the significant rise in homelessness among some of the most vulnerable populations in our community. The recently released 2015 street count report, although showing only a small overall increase in street and shelter homelessness, documented significant increases in homelessness among children, the elderly, women, and African Americans. We know from the agencies working with these populations that the lack of affordable vacancies has made finding housing an almost insurmountable challenge for a growing number of these very vulnerable people. So even though by starting to implement the strategies and investment priorities set out in our action plans, we were able to help more people than ever end their homelessness last year, over 3,500 people. And we fully expect to exceed that number with the new initiatives already underway this year. We know from the data and from what we are seeing on our streets every day that if we're going to keep people safe and significantly reduce the number of people suffering homelessness in our community, it will take extraordinary action. We have to be able to implement our safety off the streets and permanent housing strategies more quickly and on a larger scale. That is what the state of emergency and the city and county's commitment of $30 million will allow us to do. The authority granted by the state of emergency and the $30 million investment will first be able to increase shelter options for our most vulnerable neighbors. Our first priority is always to move someone who has become homeless into permanent housing. But while that process is underway, we have to be able to offer a safe place to spend the night to those who are most vulnerable on our sidewalks. By removing the obstacles to siting shelter, we will be able to make life-saving places to sleep available more quickly. With the funding proposed, we will work with our faith and nonprofit partners to establish the projected 650 needed shelter options for women and people with disabilities. Second, we will increase our homeless prevention efforts. We know that the best and most cost-effective strategy to end homelessness is to prevent it from happening in the first place. With this funding, we will be able to help at least an additional 1,000 people avoid eviction and keep their housing. We will work with legal services to increase their ability to help tenants protect their rights, and we will work to support the implementation of Commissioner Saltzman's proposed tenant protections. And third, we will increase the number of currently homeless people who have access to permanent housing. We know that the best shelter and the only true solution to homelessness is permanent housing. Under the state of emergency and with the designated resources, we will help more than 1,300 additional women, children, and people with disabilities who are homeless move out of our shelters, off the streets, and back into permanent housing. The action plans call for allocating an additional $10 million to build units that serve those who are homeless or at imminent risk of homelessness, and we will put special emphasis on permanent housing for people with severe mental illness who are homeless, including those who are accessing the soon-to-be-open community center. We do face a housing emergency in our community, and I'm grateful to you, Mayor, and to members of City Council for taking this critical step. I know I speak for the Home for Everyone Executive Committee and Coordinating Board when I say that we will do everything in our power to ensure that your actions today result in real improvements in the lives of the thousands of people who are homeless in our community tonight.
Thank you both very much. Questions for our two leaders in our administration on this issue? So then let's go ahead and take up proposed amendments to the declaration, please.
I think we were going to do you were going to have it by the panel.
I would have invited the panel. Show me to do the first and then start the amendments process and then take public testimony?
Yeah, I want to do an overview for the rental protections after you're done.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's proceed, unless there are any questions for Mark or Josh, then stand by. I'm sure there will be. And let me invite up Michael Bonacar, Stacy Bork, Israel Byer, and Matt Morris. Just pull up one more chair if you can find one. And come on up, please, as a panel. You might have to BYO chair there. Okay. Good afternoon. Who wants to start?
Start. Mr. Mayor, councilors, I'm glad to be here today. I'm Stacy Bork, Housing Services Director with Transition Projects and co-chair of the Home for Everyone Coordinating Board. First, thank you for your attention and your action on our homeless and housing crisis. On a given night, any night, more than 1,800 women, children, and men sleep outside on our streets, in our parks, under our bridges, and in our doorways. That is 1,800 people too many. Our city and our county can do better. Over the last 4 years, we've seen the number of unsheltered women increase by 41%. 1 out of 5 children who experienced homelessness in our community last night slept on the streets. We can do better than this. In the last 2 years, we've seen the number of unsheltered African Americans increase by 48%. The wait for a city-funded shelter bed is at least 6 months. If you got on the wait list today, you would spend the fall and winter outside waiting for your name to come to the top of the list in March. We can do better than this, and we will. The Home for Everyone Coordinating Board has realistic, actionable plans. We know what to do, and now we need the resources to do it. Last year, we explained our need, put a price tag on that need, and turned those investments into action. The additional investments that came from our requests resulted in an additional 575 more people who ended their homelessness. We're ready. On behalf of the coordinating board, thank you again for your attention and your action.
Thank you. Who's next? Go ahead. Just give her a thumbs up. I do a little too. Thank you, Stacey. Go ahead.
Mary had to stop the clapping before I...
Yeah, I know. That was sorry. Somebody had to get short straw.
Mayor Harrell's commissioners, my name is Michael Bonacourt. I'm the Executive Director of Home Forward. I'm here today to voice my support for Commissioner Saltzman's proposal for increased renter protections. Over a year ago, we increased the amount of time that we give new housing choice voucher recipients to find a place to live from 2 months to 4 months. As you heard from Portland Housing Bureau Director Kurt Krieger last week, the number of people who are able to successfully find a place to rent with a housing choice voucher